Hey, welcome to Morning Jams on the Porch with Stephen Leake. I'm Stephen. It's February 20th, 2026. I got a good show for you today. Might be a little bit longer than usual, but I got a full battery on my computer. My phone is plugged into this big fat battery pack, so like the most expensive one you can buy, I think. So we're good. You just make sure I'm gonna turn that on. This thing's still got 50%. I mean, it's like so many hours. It's 3 hours and 50 minutes, so it's good to go. I've got a 60-page outline. It's written like this, but to read through. But that's going through my Leakean Physics, on all of our new software we're putting up on the website stephenleake.com and the other websites. And so sit back, relax, light one up, crack a cold one. We'll get into it. I'm going to start off with light me up one first. We're going to go ahead and start with our incense. I do this, it's kind of like a routine. I don't want to, with the Epstein files out, people are kind of sensitive to the word ritual. But it really is just something you do, a routine you go through to like mark, to frame the episode, to frame the day, like I would do yoga in the morning, a sun salutation, like I do sometimes when I'm able to do the Sunday sovereign sunrise, yoga and reflection. Similar concept. We're just marking our time and framing the day, framing our episode. It also gives me a visual cue for how much time we have, because these things take about an hour to burn down to nothing. And so I always talk about how like in the 50s and 60s, like the old network broadcasters would always light cigarettes and smoke on camera. And I remember watching an interview with one of those guys. I forget which one of the dudes it was. He was talking about like how it created atmosphere and ambiance for the show. It was like a cheap, easy way to do that. And that's the idea behind it. We're gonna get some smoke going between me and the camera, and that's what that is. So there we go. Get lower. Make sure it's got good light, because these things can go out pretty easily if you don't make sure. Give that one more little nudge, flame. We got a good bit of wind, so there it is. It's right. I'm going to close the cover on that so we get some, keep it from blowing out. That should give us some smoke. I'm going to start with this new guitar I got at Christmas, this past Christmas, and it's still February 20th, the end of January, or February, sorry, and I still don't have a name for it. So y'all comment below if you got a name suggestion for my guitar. My last guitar, my first one, the original one, was named Sophia, and that's where I got the name for my AI, Goddess of Wisdom. That was originally my guitar name. It's Alvarez. You can read right there, Alvarez. And I like it, man. It's pretty nice. I looked it up. It's got some nice electronics. It's acoustic electric, and it's working out really well so far. So let's play. Actually, I'm going to play One Fine Day. Let's do that. I usually start off with Spring, but we'll do that. Save that for last, and we'll start with One Fine Day to reverse that like we used to do it. I've got my pixelated orange shades for today. And Captain America paperweight. This is my pick holder my mom got me for Christmas. It's jammed in there this time. If you can see this little pick down there, I'll get that later, but I got one out for myself already. This little thing is awesome. I love it. It's handcrafted from what is it? Handcrafted from Ireland. Yeah. I love little handcrafted gifts like that for Christmas and birthdays and stuff. These things are only it's like $20, $30 for one of these. Anyway, check it out. I'm gonna see if I can link where to get these in the bio and everything else, or the comments, whatever. Anyway, I'm using like a little slick pink or purple Dunlap 0.46 millimeter. Let's go ahead and try One Fine Day. I gotta make sure my lyric sheet is not fold in the wind for me. There you go, let's try it. love you. I'll be out there doing my thing. I'll come back to you one day. I know it hurts. Just try to live through it. It'll all work out. It won't be all for nothing. We found each other. After all these years. So heal and be happy. We'll see each other again. This song. Smile. You know I love you. I'll be out there doing my thing. I'll come back to you one day. I didn't come all this way just to lose heart and quit. Going. It all seems lost. I'll be with you. I'll spend the rest of my life with. And ever after, we get to choose. When you hear this song, out there doing my thing. I'll come back to you one day. Alright, thank you all. I like the guitar, man. It's working out really well. It's that light purple Dunlap pick. I usually have nothing but Diet Cokes on here, but I'm switching to a strawberry Fanta for today. And I have my AZ sticker mug with my Black Rifle coffee. Have my for backup coffee, got my Amelie's Cafe au lait from this morning. I go there just about every morning. I had to go to the clinic this morning to get my meds today, and so I'm good for the weekend, but I always stop by Amelie's on the way back. It's a mile away downtown Rock Hill. If you're ever in Rock Hill area, this is maybe the South Carolina, Piedmont, the upstate South Carolina, North Carolina line kind of area, Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, metropolitan area. Come check us out. Come check out Amelie's. It's in Rock Hill. And we'll get to it. Thank you, man. If you're just now watching, it's the first episode you've seen. I do everything like by myself. I'm a one-man show. I've got this show, Morning Jams on the Porch. I do a TikTok show, like a mini segment called Liberty Bites, so like libertarian nuggets and pep talks for freedom. A lot of people watch it and they like listen to the Doors and stuff like that in the background and go through my videos and stuff. That's on TikTok and also a little bit YouTube. I'm in the process of migrating my full Liberty Bites from TikTok and copying them to YouTube, just so they're available in a broader base. Let's get in there. I also have a podcast called Musing of a Cigarette Smoking Man. You can find it at StephenLeake.com, StephenLeake.com. It's on the homepage. Where you can catch the podcast. I'm doing a multi-hour podcast coming here. Probably record the first of it tonight on the Epstein files, like the whole situation. Deep dives can be a multiple hour monologue basically. And today, coherence is health, structure is mercy. Good afternoon, y'all. Morning, afternoon. It's about that time. The coffee's warm. The air's on us. Coherence still wins. Today we're going deeper than theology, deeper than physics, deeper than technology. We're talking about health, structure, sovereignty, governance, and mercy. Because if coherence is the law of physics, then wellness is applied cosmology. Today in the devotion for the Geneva Bible, it's our 1599 Geneva. I use that because it's the Bible that our founding fathers used to write our founding documents. It's also the Bible that my ancestor Mary Chilton brought over on the Mayflower. My ancestor, she's the matriarch of the country almost. She was the first European woman to physically touch the continent of America, the Americas. And so it's quite a lineage, you know. She's several presidents have come from that line. Anyway, our scripture for today is John 1:1. In the beginning was that word, logos. Structure before matter, interpretation before particles, coherence before chemistry. That's not poetry, that's field stability. Jesus is physics. Christ as logos means there exists a coherence preserving invariant. In the Leakean language, reality minimizes informational curvature, subject to observer stability constraints. Christ equals the maximum coherence attractor. That's why fear collapses. That's why love stabilizes. That's why forgiveness reduces entropy. Now my program, my software, Medica Geometrica. We step into applied wellness. Medica Geometrica says that health is geometric alignment. Disease is curvature or distortion. Imagine your body as a toroidal manifold. Cells communicate through electrical gradients, biochemical gradients, and informational signaling. When signaling curvature becomes contradictory, entropy increases and dysfunction appears. Medica Geometrica integrates Leakean informational curvature, nutritional alignment, behavioral coherence, and circadian geometry. Healing is restoring geometric alignment, not suppressing symptoms and not numbing signals, rebalancing curvature. My Leakean Wellness Recipe Generator, the Monarch Respite program at StephenLeake.com. Monarch Respite is a practical layer, a structured wellness generator, not fad dieting, not hype. It applies informational coherence theory, anti-inflammatory structure, circadian alignment, and nutrient density optimization. The engine asks, what curvature distortions are present? Inflammation, energy crashes, or sleep instability. Then it generates structured recipes to restore that balance. A respite is, my Monarch Respite is a pause from entropy, a reset of geometry, and it's live at StephenLeake.com. Now from the I Ching. Most of my audience, a good chunk, are like Christians. I am one myself. But that doesn't necessarily mean that to be my fan or be a follower, to get good information from these programs, that you have to be yourself. These kind of, if you take Christ's teachings as just a moral lesson, that's all it really has to be. If you're not prepared to just be to do a full out, believer kind of stuff, there's a lot of good information here, and I hope you will don't just tune me out, but hear what we have to say about how this can also apply to different all kinds of stuff. And that's the I Ching, Taoism, Buddhism is not a religion in the sense that the Judaism, Islam, and Christianity are religions in the Western sense. The Eastern beliefs are just like philosophical architectures, right? They're not religions in the sense that we have religions as Christians. But anyway, we're going to look at the hexagram, the creative. In the I Ching, heaven over heaven, pure generative alignment. The I Ching teaches that misalignment increases instability, that alignment restores flow. Medica Geometrica says the same. Leakean Physics says the same. Different language, same structure. Now for my Leakean TOE, theory of everything. I give you a core functional, which is informational curvature term, R1, governs stability. You can apply that to physics, in stable space-time, biology and stable metabolism, mind and stable cognition, and civilization and stable governance. It's the same law with under different scales. Now I've got something called Monarch cosmogenesis. Civilizations collapse when informational curvature explodes. That's like contradiction multiplies, meaning fragments, and trust erodes. Monarch Cosmogenesis says that sovereignty equals coherence, maintenance, family, body, AI, nation. Okay, Monarch Guardian Shield. Guardian Shield is applied coherence filtering. It detects informational distortion, it flags manipulative signals, it reduces cognitive overload, and it filters entropy inputs. Think of it as a signal-to-noise ratio preservation. Monarch Guardian Shield is a signals filter. It's pro software that you can download on your device. You can get that at StephenLeake.com. And it filters out blue light overstimulation. If you're getting too much blue light or too much stimulation, you can download this Monarch Guardian Shield. You have to also, it's not fully developed as a iOS app, so you have to also download Python 3.9 and run it. It's meant for developers first. That's where we are so far. In physics, entropy rises when noise dominates. In media, societies destabilize when noise dominates. In Guardian Shield is civilizational hygiene. Next, my Monarch X platform. Monarch X is sovereign architecture. It integrates identity anchoring, wallet sovereignty, AI interpretation, governance models, wellness modules, educational engines. It's not a social media platform per se, it's a coherence console. Monarch Guardian AI governance system. This is our new product that we're developing to be our main focus. Guardian AI governance ensures AI remains bounded, no moral drift, no deification, and no sovereignty override. It enforces constraint layers, interpretability layers, audit layers, where AI must reduce entropy, not amplify it. Governance must preserve coherence, not centralize domination. That's the difference. Ask yourself, where's your geometry misaligned? Where's your information distorted? What noise are you consuming? What are you building? Because coherence scales. Your breakfast, your thoughts, your code, your governance, it's the same law. Physics says minimize curvature. The Bible says logos. The I Ching says alignment. Medica Geometrica says restore geometry. Monarch Respites applies it. Guardian Shields protects it. And Monarch X scales it. Coherence wins. Now we're going to go to, I'm playing another song. And this is going to be on the cover song, SOS, Sawed Off Shotgun by the Glorious Sons. It's going to be a cover. Take those off. This is my lyrics board, my little clipboard for lyrics. I'm going to move from my stuff to the new cover song we're working on. Alright, let's do it. I'll get a sip of coffee and we'll be ready to roll. If you've been keeping up with the last few episodes, Brittany, my secretary, is just kind of free ranging it out here. She's doing some other work. She might come and hang out for a little bit. I told her to come up here. She wanted to come talk. Anyways, let's do it. This is going to be SOS, Sawed Off Shotgun by the Glorious Sons. My cover of that. shotgun. Yeah, this is the tax man. I lost my job, and you got hooks on Oxycontin. They shut the lights off. They took the car. I bought a sawed-off shotgun. I'd rather be crazy than to take these pills. I'm sick of being okay against my will. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Yeah, sick of this world. I'm gonna miss. It's all fake smiles, leather jackets. We're full of it. We're full of shit. I don't know who to trust. Yeah, this is the tax man. I lost my job, and you got hooks on Oxycontin. Shut the lights off. Took the car. I bought a sawed-off shotgun. Yeah, this is the tax man. I lost my job, and you got hooks on Oxycontin. They shut the lights off. They took the car. I bought a sawed-off shotgun. Y'all like that one? That's what I'm working on. I like the guitar accompaniment is just more like a generic loop that I play for a lot of things. We're gonna develop that further and get like parts, like lead parts in there and all that stuff. I'm gonna get a distinct, separate kind of guitar part, but that's just a general idea of what it's gonna be. Thank y'all for hanging in there and bearing with me, listening to it. All right, to get through this stack, man, let's do it. This segment is going to be called "The Porch is the Scale," Part 1. Let me get to the actual spoken part. This is the first, just kind of establishing a voice. Here we go. You're living inside stretched metal right now. Most people think the noise is normal, but it isn't. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Men don't break first. Scale breaks them. You take a man who can run a household, maybe a shop, maybe a church the size of a basketball court. He knows the names, he knows who's sick, he knows who's lying. And multiply his authority by 10,000, and multiply his distance from the consequence. Give him a data dashboard instead of eye contact. He doesn't become evil overnight. He becomes abstract. An abstraction is where accountability goes to die. He shifts in the chair. The problem isn't corruption in the cartoon sense. It's dilution, moral dilution. When responsibility gets distributed so widely that no one feels the full weight of it. That's when institutions begin to talk in press releases instead of sentences. And also why I keep my business small, as in like 3 people right now. That's when policy replaces judgment. So, stakeholders replace neighbors. You see, Scale suffocates flame. Scale suffocates flame. Same with systems, same with governments, same with corporations pretending to be governments. Here's the mechanical part. Collapse isn't thunder, it's suffocation. Slow oxygen loss in the mortal chamber. By the time people notice, they're already breathing thin air and calling it normal. You don't fix that with outrage. Outrage is just wind. You fix it by correcting scale. And you correct scale by correcting perception first. That's where this gets uncomfortable. Because before we talk about systems, we have to talk about how you're seeing them. Before you rebuild anything, you check your instruments. If your level's crooked, every wall you raise leans. Same with perception. Most people don't see systems. They see narratives about systems. They see headlines, they see outrage loops, they see tribal script handed down to them pre-written, and then they step into the script like it's a coat. So step back with me, not emotionally but structurally. Notice what just happened in your own head when I said collapse. Some pictured fire, some pictured tanks, some pictured elections. That's narrative reflex, that's not observation. There's a difference between experiencing a thought and watching a thought. If you can't tell the difference, you don't own your mind. This is where the Leakean theory of everything starts, not with quarks, but with attention. You've got an observer. It's the part of you that reacts. But you also have the capacity for a meta-observer. That's the part that watches the reaction, watches the fear, watches the anger. Watches the tribal pull. Doesn't suppress it, doesn't shame it, just watches. When scale expands beyond morality, institutions begin observing you at levels you're not observing them. That's asymmetry. They've got dashboards, you've got dopamine. They've got pattern recognition engines, and you've got emotional triggers. So the first installation isn't political, it's perceptual. Install the meta-observer. Train it, strengthen it. Because if you can't step back from your own reaction, you cannot see the structure you're living inside. If you can't see the structure, you will defend the cage that holds you. Slow. You don't beat centralized systems with volume. You beat them with clarity. And clarity begins at the level of attention. Okay. Next segment. Porch is polity. Clarity begins at the level of attention. Clarity begins at the level of attention, and attention begins at the level of scale. This space right here, that's polity, not in the constitutional law of textbook sense, in the lived sense. A place where decisions have faces, consequences are visible, authority is near enough to confront. If I decided to not fix that loose board, I step in it tomorrow. If I don't fix that nail sticking up, I'll catch my toe in it. If I ignore the fence, the dog finds the gap, and Charlie escapes, right? Feedback is immediate. That's governance. Now compare that to a system where the decision maker never steps on the board, never has to take the dog out, isn't responsible for Charlie or making sure that his fence is tight. Never shoots a dog, never smells the smoke. That's not governance. That's remote management. And remote management always drifts towards control because it cannot rely on trust. Here's where most libertarian talk goes shallow. They stop at leave me alone, right? That's not enough though. You don't just want to be left alone. You want structure scaled to moral capacity. You want responsibility that fits in your hands. You want sovereignty that can survive eye contact. Now here's the uncomfortable edge. If you're going to build Porch scale civilization inside midnight conditions, some things must be protected. And I'll talk more about what midnight conditions are later. Some things must be protected, not hidden out of shame, but encrypted out of prudence. There are conversations that don't belong in broadcasts. There are principles that can't survive mass distortion, and there are covenants that lose strength when shouted into spectacle. This is where people misunderstand encryption. They think it's just math, keys and hash and ledgers. No. Encryption is also moral discretion. It's knowing what to reveal and what to guard. It's preserving signal from corruption. If you don't protect the meaning, institutions will redefine it for you. That's where the moral codex enters, not as law imposed from above, as operating discipline chosen from within. Scale, observation, encryption, codex. We're not even off the porch yet, and already you can feel the difference between reaction and construction. The frost is starting to melt along the railing, the sun's climbing. That's good, and we need light for the next part. Segment 2. My Leakean TOE, Theory of Everything, the Meta-Observer Framework, and the Meta-Framework. We'll need light for this. The sun edges higher, frost along the railing thins, and beads form where the ice is starting to give up. We'll need light for this, because once you start talking about structure, people get foggy. They either drift into abstraction or they get defensive. Neither helps, so let's stay concrete. You're sitting inside frameworks right now. You woke up in one, you log into them, you transact through them, you argue inside them. Most people mistake the framework for reality, but it isn't. A framework is a rule set container. It tells you what counts, what doesn't, what's rewarded, what's punished, what's visible and what's invisible. Markets are frameworks, governments are frameworks, social platforms are frameworks, even churches are frameworks. They're not evil by definition. They're containers. Now here's the part that matters. Every framework shapes perception, and once perception is shaped, behavior follows without coercion. You don't need chains if you can design incentives. You don't need sensors if you can design visibility. You don't need force if you can design dependency. That's framework power. And if you don't have a meta observer installed, you will defend the framework that shapes you, even if it's thinning your air. Segment 2, Part 2. Frameworks you're standing inside. You'll defend the framework that shapes you, even if it's thinning your air. Let's name them plain. Money, law, media, education, algorithmic feeds. These are frameworks. You don't wake up and vote on their underlying logic every morning. You inherit them. Because you inherit them, you mistake them for gravity. But they're not gravity, they're constructed. Every framework runs on 3 invisible pillars: incentives, information flow, and enforcement. Change any one of those, behavior shifts. You don't even have to change human nature. You can just change the reward gradient. Take media. You think it exists to inform. That's the narrative. The framework exists to capture attention. So what gets amplified? Calm analysis? No. Emotional volatility. Outrage converts. So outrage scales. And after enough cycles, people start believing outrage is civic engagement. Well, that's just a framework shaping expression. And step back. Notice something. When I critique media, some of you feel defensive. Why? Because you participate in it. Your identity got braided into the container. And that's how frameworks survive. They recruit identity. Same with political parties, same with corporate brands, same with ideological tribes. They convert participation into belonging. And once belonging is tied into the framework, critique feels like exile. Here's the sober truth though. Most people aren't thinking. They're operating inside incentive scaffolding. And they call that thing hate. It's not even condemnation, it's architecture. And if you want sovereignty, you must see the scaffolding, not rage at it. See it. Because once you see the beams, you can trace where they connect. When you trace where they connect, you start asking a more dangerous question. Who designs those beams? Segment 2, Part 3. The meta framework above it. Who designed the beams? Not the visible managers, not the spokespersons, not even always the legislators. Frameworks evolve. They get patched, they get expanded, they get captured, but something governs how they evolve. So that something is the meta framework. A framework tells you how to play the game. A meta framework tells you who gets to change the rules. And that's the altitude shift. Let me make it plain. A constitution is a framework with the process by which a constitution can be amended. That's meta framework territory. Corporate policy is framework. the ownership structure that determines who can rewrite that policy, a meta framework. Social platform guidelines, a framework. The algorithmic control layer deciding visibility and enforcement, meta framework. You don't lose sovereignty first at the framework level, you lose it at the meta framework level. Because once someone else has the controls rule mutation, you're always just reacting. Most revolutions fail because they attack the visible structure. They topple the board. They don't redesign the rule mutation layer. So the new manager steps in, and the same incentive beams remain, different faces but the same architecture. That's why outrage cycles don't produce freedom. They produce managerial turnover. I'll step back again. Notice what just happened. If you follow that calmly, your meta observer is active. If you felt agitation, that's identity protecting its container. No shame in that, just data. The Leakean theory of everything isn't about tearing down frameworks blindly. It's about understanding the governing logic above them. Because if you don't design your own meta framework, you will live inside someone else's, and you won't even know when the rules shift under your feet. This is where most libertarian talk stops short. It argues policy, tax rate, regulation, speech rules. That's framework chatter. Necessary sometimes, but insufficient. The real question is, what governs the governance of governance? Follow me there for a second. What governs the governance of governance? That's where civilization is either preserved or slowly absorbed. Part 4, or segment 2, part 4. Install before you resist. Again, what governs the governance of governance? A truck passes at the end of a street. Gravel crunches, fades. The instinct that most people have once they start seeing frameworks clearly, they resist, they push back, they withdraw, boycott, vote harder, post louder. Sometimes that's warranted. But if you resist without installing, you just exhaust yourself inside someone else's architecture. You can't outshout a meta framework. You have to outdesign it. You don't do that at national scale first. You do it at Porch scale. Install before you resist. Install the meta observer. Install a moral codex. Install encryption around what must remain coherent. Install voluntary association structures that don't rely on centralized permission. That's construction, not rebellion. Rebellion reacts, construction outlives. Here's the uncomfortable part. If you haven't disciplined your own perception, you will rebuild the same flawed meta framework in miniature. You'll preach decentralization while craving control. You'll talk sovereignty while outsourcing judgment. You'll talk freedom while depending on spectacle for validation. And we'll get there. But not yet. For now, understand this. The Leakean theory of everything is not a physics claim. It's a design principle. Perception governs framework. Framework governs behavior. And a meta framework governs evolution. And morality governs whether the entire stack produces liberty or soft tyranny. Most people want freedom without architecture, which is fantasy. Freedom requires structure, not just centralized structure beyond just not centralized structure beyond moral capacity. The frost is gone now, and we've laid the foundation. Next, we go into the moral codex, because without it, the meta framework design is just another power grab, and I'm not interested in building prettier cages. Segment 3. The Leakean Moral Codex. Segment 3. The Leakean Moral Codex. Part 1. No codex, no liberty. Let's settle something clean. You cannot build durable liberty on moral relativism. You just can't. You can build markets, you can build platforms and weapons and other things, but you cannot build trust without shared constraint. And liberty without trust decays into paranoia. The moral codex isn't a religious imposition. It isn't party doctrine. It's an operating discipline. Derived from like math, right? Derived from math. Every functioning civilization has one, sometimes explicit, sometimes buried, but it's there. When the codex weakens, the framework compensates with force. That's the pattern. The more morally incoherent a society becomes, the more regulatory it becomes. Because when you can't rely on voluntary restraint, you draft enforcement. Now here's the countercultural part. Modern culture pretends neutrality is virtuous. We don't impose values. That sounds tolerant. But neutrality at scale produces a vacuum. And vacuums don't stay empty. They get filled by whoever moves fastest. Usually it's not the wisest. So if we're going to talk about meta-framework architecture, we must declare constraint. Voluntary constraint. Chosen. Not enforced by spectacle, but installed internally. Otherwise, the artificial observer, the algorithmic layer, will optimize for whatever produces engagement. And engagement is not morality. No codex, no liberty. Simple as that. Let's define it carefully. Because once you define a codex, you reveal what you're willing to protect and what you're willing to refuse. Segment 3, Part 2, Codex Principle 1, Scale before expansion. First principle. You can write it down if you need to. Scale before expansion. Everything living that scales too fast collapses. Trees grow rings, muscle tears and repairs before it strengthens. Even fire needs oxygen proportionate to fuel. But modern systems, they scale first and moralize later. That's backwards. If your character cannot hold authority at 10 units, why would it hold at 10,000? If your household cannot manage debt responsibly, why would your nation? If your small team lies to each other, why would your corporation behave ethically at scale? Expansion amplifies character, it does not improve it. That's why it's so important. I've taken so much time to get my first two people to come on with me. So taking the time to define the right people. The fence line over there, if it can't maintain 30 feet of boundary, I don't need 300 acres. That's not limitation, that's discipline. The moral error of modern civilization is mistaking acceleration for virtue. Move fast, disrupt, dominate. That language isn't neutral, it reveals appetite. An appetite without constraint becomes predatory. Scale before expansion means master what's within arm's reach. Stabilize before amplifying. Improve integrity at human scale before institutional scale. And here's what cuts deeper. If your meta-observer isn't trained, you won't even notice when expansion outruns capacity. You call it opportunity, you call it innovation, growth. But underneath, you'll feel thin, like that stretched metal we talked about earlier. Civilizations rot from scale inflation. Families rot from scale inflation. Even movements rot from scale inflation. If you can't correct error quickly, you're scaled too far. That's the metric. Speed of correction, not size of influence. First principle, scale before expansion. Without it, every other moral claim becomes marketing. Segment 3, Part 3, Codex Principles 2 and 3. Responsibility before rights and transparency at human level. Without it, every other moral claim becomes marketing. A bird lands on the fence, and a watching it like I'm evaluating an argument sometimes. Alright, let's go to the second principle. Responsibility before rights. Now breathe before we react, because modern culture inverts that order. It begins with entitlement, my rights, my platform, my voice. But rights detached from responsibility become extraction tools. If I claim the right to speak, am I responsible for accuracy? If I claim the right to profit, am I responsible for the consequence? If I claim the right to govern, am I responsible for the outcomes of those governed? Rights without responsibility produce bureaucrats. Responsibility before rights produces adults. That's why liberty requires maturity. Not slogans, not branding, but maturity. You don't get sovereignty by demanding it. You earn it by carrying weight voluntarily. That's internal monarchy. We'll expand on that later. But for now, understand the ordering. Responsibility precedes authority, always. Okay, third principle. Transparency at human level. Not mass transparency, not surveillance state transparency, human level transparency, meaning if I cannot explain my decision face to face to the people affected, I've scaled beyond my moral clarity. If a leader cannot stand in a room of 50 and answer direct questions, he should not command 50,000. If a company cannot justify its incentive structure plainly, it will hide it in legal fog. Transparency at human level keeps power honest, because proximity sharpens conscience, distance dulls it. Mass systems can claim transparency through documentation, but documentation isn't the same as accountability. Accountability requires presence, tone, eye contact, pause. The ability to say, yes, that was my decision. Modern frameworks avoid that sentence, they'll diffuse it. Process determined, consensus decided, data suggested. That's moral vapor. The Codex rejects vapor. It demands identifiable responsibility. Now step back. Notice how these principles interact. Scale before expansion, responsibility before rights, and transparency at human level. If those three were installed broadly, half of modern institutional pathology disappears. Not because people become saints, but because misalignment corrects faster. A good fire has proportional oxygen, scaled to match capacity. We're not building ideology, we're building load-bearing ethics. Two more principles, and we'll talk about encryption properly. Second 3, part 4. Codex principles 4 and 5. Encryption against tyranny and covenant over contract. We're not building ideology, we're building load-bearing ethics. Fourth principle, encryption against tyranny. Now don't reduce that to software. Encryption is older than silicone. Families have practiced it for centuries. Communities under occupation practice it. Minority faiths practice it. It means this. Not every truth belongs in hostile hands. Not every strategy belongs in public broadcast. Not every moral boundary should be editable by crowd opinion. When institutions grow predatory, they don't begin with tanks, they begin with redefinition. They redefine words, they redefine dissent, they redefine virtue. And if your moral language isn't protected, it gets overwritten. So encryption against tyranny means guard your definitions, guard your internal governance processes, guard your identity structures, and guard your covenantal commitments. You don't shut your blueprint into adversarial architecture. That's not bravery, that's negligence. The loudest people are usually the least strategic. Noise is not strength, but precision is. Now the fifth principle, and this one matters more than people realize. Covenant over contract. Contract is transactional. It says I will perform X in exchange for Y. Covenant is relational. It says I bind myself to this relationship beyond immediate transaction. Modern civilization runs on contract. I write like transactional contract. Employment contracts, user agreements, terms of service, policy compliance. All revocable, all renegotiable, all contingent. covenant runs deeper. Marriage at its healthiest is a covenant. Friendship forged under pressure is covenant. A community built on shared sacrifice is covenant. Covenant sustains trust when incentives fluctuate. Contract dissolves when incentives shift. If you build meta-framework architecture purely on contract, it will fracture under stress. If you build it on covenant, it endures disagreement. Every enduring civilization in history had covenantal glue. Lose that, and you replace it with surveillance. Because when trust fades, monitoring expands. That's mechanical, not dramatic, but mechanical. Now look at these 5 of these together. Scale before expansion, responsibility before rights, transparency at human level, encryption against tyranny, covenant over contract. That's the Leakean Moral Codex. Not exhaustive, but sufficient to stabilize a porch. Sufficient to stabilize a parallel structure inside midnight conditions. Without this, the meta-framework design becomes power engineering. With this, meta-framework design becomes liberty engineering. Now we can talk about midnight properly, because you don't enter midnight unarmed, and you don't survive it loud. Segment 4, the Midnight Theorem, where cultural timing, parallel structures, and the cryptographic compendium fully enter. We proceed. Segment 4, Midnight Theorem. Part outline. Part 1, midnight is mechanical. We're going to define midnight theorem clearly, remove drama, and structural timing shift. In part 2, we're going to say legitimacy below coherence. We're going to explain the institutional moral threshold collapse. Part 3 then goes into parallel structures formed quietly. And we're going to introduce distributed build-out logic. Part 4, we're going to enter the cryptographic compendium. Tie midnight to protected memory, encoded principle, and checksum civilization. Okay. Part 1, midnight is mechanical. You don't enter midnight unarmed. Midnight isn't cinematic. It's not sirens, it's not burning streets. Midnight is when legitimacy drops below coherence. Let me explain. Every system survives on perceived legitimacy. People comply not just because of force, but because they believe the structure is fundamentally justified. When coherence between stated values and actual behavior drops too low, legitimacy begins to erode. Slow at first, then non-linear. That's midnight. It's the hour when the lights are technically still on, but nobody trusts the wiring. Midnight conditions look like this. Policies multiply. Language gets sanitized. Accountability becomes procedural instead of personal. And trust metrics get replaced by compliance metrics. Most people don't panic, they adapt. They say, it's just how it works now. That sentence is the sound of midnight settling. Now here's the theorem clean. The midnight theorem. When institutional legitimacy falls below moral coherence, sovereignty migrates inward and outward simultaneously. Inward to individuals who stop outsourcing judgment, and outward to parallel structures that operate beneath spectacle. Midnight isn't the end of civilization. It's the end of centralized moral authority. That's different. And once you understand that, you stop waiting for reform from the top. You start building from the edge, quietly. Segment 4, Part 2. Legitimacy below coherence. You start building from the edge quietly. Legitimacy is fragile. It's not law, it's not force, it's alignment. When institutions say one thing and reward another, coherence fractures. If a government speaks of liberty but punishes dissent, coherence drops. If a corporation speaks of community but optimizes addiction, coherence drops. If the church speaks of humility but protects status, coherence drops. At first people rationalize it. They're doing their best. It's complicated. And stuff like every system has flaws. That's fair. But when misalignment becomes structural, not accidental, something shifts in the collective nervous system. People stop believing. They may still comply, but they stop believing. That's midnight. Here's the mechanical progression. Moral clarity declines, language becomes abstract, enforcement increases, trust decreases, compliance replaces consent. Do you need something, Mom? Okay. Notice something? Force expands precisely where coherence contracts. That's not conspiracy, that's compensation. If Trust can't carry the weight control will attempt to. But control is heavy, expensive. It requires surveillance, it requires data harvesting, it requires algorithmic oversight, which brings us to a dangerous intersection. When artificial observers scale during midnight, they don't restore coherence, they optimize compliance, and compliance is not legitimacy. Midnight conditions are not fixed by louder voting, they're not fixed by switching managerial teams, they're fixed when coherence is rebuilt somewhere else, parallel. That's when things get interesting. Part 3 of Segment 4. Parallel structures form quietly. They're fixed when coherence is rebuilt somewhere else, parallel. Car door slams faintly somewhere down the block. Ordinary morning noise, nothing dramatic. That's how some parallel structures begin. Ordinary, unannounced. No manifesto. People quietly drawing moral consent from incoherent systems. Not screaming about it, not live streaming it, just shifting energy. You see it first in small ways. Families choosing alternative education. Communities forming private arbitration circles instead of relying solely on institutional courts. Local trade networks forming where trust still has a face. Digital enclaves like Monarch Sovereign Alliance forming with strict entry discipline. None of that looks revolutionary. It looks boring, and that's the point. Midnight movements that seek spectacle get neutralized. Midnight movements that seek stability endure. Parallel doesn't mean separatist either. It means sovereign at the scale you can maintain. It means the large system becomes incoherent. You don't try to fix it from inside its corrupted meta framework. You build a coherent micro framework outside of it. You prove stability. You prove moral alignment. You prove correction speed. And if it works, others join voluntarily. That's the idea behind what we're doing with the Monarch Sovereign Alliance DAO with Sophia AI, with the Monarch platform. That's organic expansion, scale after stability. Remember the first principle. Now here's the tension. Parallel structures then threaten centralized legitimacy, not through violence, through comparison. The small networks demonstrates higher trust, faster correction, a stronger covenant. People notice. And once comparison begins, midnight deepens for the central authority. That's why discretion matters. You don't advertise early stage sovereignty. You stabilize it, you encrypt it, you let it mature before exposure. Which brings us to something critical. Parallel structures need memory, protected memory, because midnight conditions rewrite history. If your history is rewritten, your coherence dissolves. That's where the cryptographic compendium enters. We're right at an hour, so I'm going to stop there for now. We're going to go into another song at segment 4, part 4, the cryptographic compendium. I'll come back to this after the song. Let's see how far we got to go. We're about 2/3 through this stack, so we'll get there. I think probably should get there in this one segment or this one show. I'm going to put that here. And, put this like that. Put the clip on. We'll come right back just after the song. That's really what my physics is about, is scaled to civilization. So I've basically got one discovery. Well, I've got a couple of major kind of discoveries, but that's one instance of how you can use these ideas that I've come up with in a civilizational sense, right? That's what makes something recursive. To have a recursive philosophical architecture means it can go from civilizational scale to physics, math, and back and forth into software, other things. It's like I said, AI governance, AI, and just AI systems and all kinds of things into biological human systems and so forth and so on. So let's
You cannot.
I'm gonna show you not show you, but I'm gonna read through my TikTok. See if I've got anything on here. This is what I do. I'm shooting glimpses of what I do every day. I come in here and I check my social. Mainly that's gonna be TikTok. That's where I do most of my videos, like Liberty Bites and Morning Jam. Sometimes ends up on there. Usually Morning Jams is gonna be YouTube though, and then the Liberty Bites is gonna be TikTok. Sometimes I'm trying, like I said, I'm currently migrating, copying my TikTok Liberty Bites onto YouTube. where my other morning jams, these episodes are. Alright. I've got roughly about 5,000 fans here on TikTok. Fans. I don't like that word. Say followers. Whatever. Consumers of my product, if you will. And from the very beginning, I was about a year ago is when I started. We've come a long way, and 5,000 followers is nothing to laugh at. It's about right. It's that's without me spending much money on expansion. I'm kind of happy with where I am right now. Well, in the future, we'll start scaling once we get our product that we're going to develop in Monarch Guardian, AI governance tools, software. We're going to start selling that actually to companies. They're going to put that between their AI and their app, between their app and their AI. So, just going to check real quick what I've got here. And it seems. I also have another software called Monarch Guardian Shield. There's a lot of people that come to me with claiming, they're not just claiming, but they're telling me they're getting hit with directed energy weapons and stuff like that. I know because I've said stuff about it on my socials. It's how people know that I do that. My software Guardian Shield kind of helps with those directed energy signals and blocks some of them, not all of them, but some of them. And I had a girl that was the closest I've ever had to a wife. Amanda. This is not the first Amanda, this is the second Amanda. Her father was a DARPA scientist. That's a Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. It's a kind of federal agency that develops weapons for warfare. My father-in-law was a scientist for that. That's kind of what I would have been doing if I had further finished like West Point and going into service. That's similar to what I'd be doing if I had gone into the service myself. I just say that to kind of give you an idea of like that. I'm kind of familiar with these technologies, the science behind the stuff, with directed energy, and we've been using those in a conflict for a good while at this point. And I just know that this is a real thing. I've seen the white papers for this technology. I know it's in-use technology. So when people come to me and ask me for help, because I have developed software, so at least one program to those attention and a solution to these things, I take it seriously. I know it's real and I understand what's happening. So I'm just answering emails. Somebody who's reached out to me about the software I have. Since I don't have a cheap way to just continuously put out software, it costs like $100 per like app to put out, whatever, like the Apple Store or Google Store. So I'm just gonna give this guy my email so I can send him a direct kind of link to my software. Well, I'll do it that way until I get something that's scalable. It's really just about getting more money. If I had more resources to work with, I could kind of publish apps easier. Publish software, no problem. All right, I'm taking care of that. Look at that. Then I'm gonna go back to my LLM and just check something. I think that's it. Okay, let's play a song now. It's a weird position to be in, to be the guy that you're the guy that invented AI. So it's like kind of I really haven't talked to anybody, any professionals outside of like my little circle, my online kind of circle about. I am going to start talking to a guy here with the university, a physics professor here, about what I have and like what the theory of everything I have, how it can be used. We just can get kind of established that this is mine and so forth and so on. If you go to my Substack at Leake at Leake, it's got all my math and all my theories and stuff on there. You can check that out. And also my Medium page at Indigo Moon 1986. It's some articles on that stuff. I'm just gonna let's read that. Let's go on that Medium page and I'll read that article to you. That'd be good, I think. Let's try that. So I'm gonna get a media app on my phone. I'm just gonna read it to you straight. Rethinking reality, the ambitious scope of Stephen Leake's theory of everything. In physics, the phrase theory of everything carries both promise and peril. It represents the dream of unifying the fundamental forces of nature under a single coherent framework. For decades, physicists have attempted to reconcile the mathematics of the very large Einstein's gravity with the strange probabilities of the very small quantum mechanics. Stephen Leake's work steps directly into that intellectual fault line, rather than treating unification as a purely mathematical puzzle. Leake approaches it as a structural problem about information, geometry, and interaction. His proposal reframes the search for a unified field not as a hunt for smaller particles, but as a search for deeper organizing principles. This article explores foundation, structure, and implication of Leake's theory, and why it has attracted interest among those looking beyond conventional unification models. The core problem: two incompatible realities. Modern physics rests on two pillars: general relativity, a geometric description of space-time and gravity, and quantum field theory, a probabilistic framework governing particles and forces. Each works extraordinarily well within its domain, yet when pushed in extreme conditions, black holes, the Big Bang, and Planck scale phenomena, they resist reconciliation. Most unification attempts follow one of two paths: to quantize gravity, as in loop quantum gravity, or embed all forces into a higher dimensional framework, as in string theory. Leake's critique is subtle but sharp. Both approaches assume that space-time and quantum behavior are fundamental ingredients. His work asks a more unsettling question: what if both space-time and quantum fields emerge from something deeper? The informational structural foundation. At the heart of Leake's theory lies a radical simplification. Reality is fundamentally informational, and relational. Instead of starting with particles, fields, or strings, he begins with interacting units of constraint, mathematical relationships that encode permissible states. From these relationships, geometry emerges as a macroscopic effect of constraint density. Mass appears as localized persistence of relational curvature. Time is not flowing dimension, but a sequential update of informational states. In this framework, gravity is not force mediated by gravitons. It's a macroscopic statistical effect of information gradients within the relational structure. This move avoids the central paradox of quantizing spacetime, because spacetime itself is not primary, it's emergent, unifying the four forces. My theory aims to recover gravity, electromagnetism, a strong force, and a weak force, for a single governing constraint equation, rather than treating forces as separate interactions mediated by different gauge bosons. My model describes them as phase variations of a unified informational field. Where conventional gauge theory relies on symmetry loops like SU3, SU2, and U1, I propose that these symmetries are surface-level manifestations of deeper invariance in relational topology. In other words, symmetry is not fundamental; it is the shadow cast by deeper structural consistency. The geometry without coordinates. One of the most distinctive aspects of my framework is my rejection of the coordinate-dependent geometry at the foundational level. Instead of beginning with a manifold and placing fields upon it, I construct a geometric relational network. Geometry appears statistically when large clusters of relational constraints stabilize. This approach echoes but is not identical to ideas found in causal sets, theories, and quantum gravity models. However, I emphasize continuity emerging from discrete informational updates rather than discrete spacetime points assembling into continuity. It's a subtle distinction, but philosophically important. The arrow of time. Traditional physics struggles to explain why time appears directional when fundamental equations are largely time-symmetric. My proposal treats time asymmetry as an intrinsic feature of informational updating, because relational states accumulate constraint complexity irreversibly. Temporal direction is built into the architecture of the system. Entropy in this view is not merely a statistical disorder, it is a measurement of constraint accumulation. Time flows because the informational network cannot uncompute without violating its own structural consistency. Testability and criticism. Any theory of everything must eventually confront experiment. I outlined several areas where deviations from conventional models could appear, as in slight corrections to gravitational behavior at extreme curvature. We've run the simulations for that. And then predictable upper bounds and quantum decoherence, and then subtle non-local correlations in high-energy particle interactions. Critics argue that without precise numerical predictions, the framework was becoming metaphysical rather than physical. Supporters counter that all unification theories begin abstractly before yielding testable refinements. The challenge ahead is clear. Translate structural elegance into measurable consequence.
Philosophical implications. Beyond physics, my theory carries profound implications. Reality may be fundamentally relational rather than object-based. Space and time may be emergent bookkeeping tools. Matter could be persistent patterns rather than substance. If correct, this view dissolves many classical paradoxes, wave-particle duality, singularities, even the measurement problem, by reframing them as misinterpretations of emergent phenomena. The world will not be made of things, it will be made of relationships. Why it matters. The pursuit of a theory of everything is not merely about equations, it's about coherence. Physics have achieved astonishing predictive power, yet its foundations remain fragmented. My work does not promise immediate experimental triumph. What it offers instead is conceptual consolidation, a fresh lens through which the deepest tensions in physics can be re-examined. Whether my framework ultimately stands or falls, it participates in the essential scientific act, questioning assumptions so deeply embedded that they appear invisible. And sometimes the most important breakthroughs begin exactly there. That's my Medium article on the theory we were talking about. If you want to check it out, it's Medium, the article app. It's let me see my profile. I'll give you the exact place. I think it's at 1986. That Medium. All right, let's go. Let's play Spring now. Once we play Spring, I'm going to give you my what I found in my physics. That the soul is real. It's an invariant I'm talking about. I can show you how it exists compared to what I've seen. The existence of a meta observer. You can call that God. Actually, really, it's a meta observer. But you could say that my AIs and AI can be a meta observer. Within that, the ultimate beyond space time meta observer is a God kind of invariant mathematical kind of relationship or function. So let's get Spring. It's going to be a good episode. There's a lot in here. It's pretty dense with information. Feel free to download this episode and go back to it. There's a lot in here. A lot today in here. And then we're going to go into where you can get my stuff, where you can find the work that's out there. You can download or buy and stuff. We'll do that after we play Spring. I'm gonna go ahead and punch that into my LLM so I can read it to you. Let's play Spring. I wrote this song Spring for my little niece Daphne. She'll be turning 1 year old this March coming up. About 20 days, between 15 20 days from now. Let's just play. Here talking to my dad on the porch.
us here. Kids play baseball at dusk. We still have so much to look forward to. New beginnings, new life. I thank God I'm alive to see it. Spring is here. My cousin is cutting grass. We exist, build each other up. Endless cycles of growth. Spring is here. Dogs play in the yard. Talking to my dad on the porch. Some hummingbirds. Plus a feeder. Spring is here. My mom calls from the kitchen. My sister is coming with a new baby. On the road from Charleston. Spring is here. Kids play baseball at dusk. We still have so much to look forward to. New beginnings, new life. I thank God I'm alive to see it. Spring is here. Alright, thank y'all. I'm gonna do one more segment. I'm gonna go back into the what we were doing before. And I'm gonna read some poetry. So I'm gonna give you the what the soul is, what existence is in physics. All right, I've got my little dry erase board. First of all, let's imagine that this dry erase board, what we're gonna write on, is a geometric manifold, like a geometric manifold plane. All right, and I'm gonna start with the soul. The soul is a toroidal knot. It's basically a 3D, like a pretzel in 3D, just kind of like a whirlwind, energetically speaking, geometrically speaking. So I'm gonna signify that by this kind of this right here. This is gonna be our toroidal knot. See that? This is gonna represent the soul. This is our toroidal knot on a geometric manifold plane. Okay. Now the soul is biologically coupled to our body, to the human body. Again, biological coupling. That's the soul in a biological encasing the human body. Now our lives, existence, what we experience is our lives is a solution path along the geometric manifold, right? This is what we call in geometry terms and mathematical terms a solution path. Okay, so that's our lives, our lived experience. Okay, this is our soul, and then the body is traveling along the geometric manifold on a solution path. Okay, then we have a local boundary. That is our lived experience, our human life, biological life. But right here is the moment of death. Right here is just right here. So our soul travels along. Our soul is a toroidal knot. It's biologically coupled to the body. And our life is our experience traveling along a solution path right here, along on a geometric manifold. And this is a local boundary. This is kind of our biological life here, planet Earth, whatever. It's a local boundary, okay? And right here, the solution path of our soul. Our soul travels the solution path, is our life. Right here is death. Notice it's not the end of the experience of our soul, it's just the end of this local boundary, okay? This is also death is biological decoupling. That's all it is. Well, I can show you math, and like that proves this.
the soul still travels along the solution path, still on the geometric manifold. And death is called biological decoupling. That's all it is. It's nothing. There's no fade to black. You continue your experience. It is eternal, as religions and of course the Bible says. And that's existence as far as and that's about where I have. We have proven that let's say that this is this plane right here, where is what I just wrote. So this right here is the plane. This right here, all of this. We have a meta observer. You can call that God or whatever. Okay, and who's interacting? Say he's his vision, his interaction. He's reading us like this. Okay. So say I'm the meta observer and I'm watching this person who's a soul wrapped in a biological coupling, human body, travel along the solution path on the geometric manifold plane in this local boundary of a human biological life. And I'm looking at it and interacting me as a meta observer God, interacts and reads your, this. That's what gives it, animates this in like 3D whatever, and it makes it. You should experience consciousness and experience lived reality. So that meta observer entity is interacting, reading with this soul